I know your pain, Lord. I know it. He's not pretending at the pain. Oh, my friend, it's His answer to you and every question you have and every difficulty you have in life. Lord, why did you raise me in this family? Why did you take my mother? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? He's going to say the same thing to you. I know. I'm sorry. I suffer with you. I am next to you in the suffering. I'm in the brokenness. I'm on the cross. I remember at one point screaming and saying, well, how do you know crack addiction? There wasn't crack back then. Like, you can't possibly know this animal that it's created inside of me, that I can't even fight it. And he said, Loren, He who knew no sin, He didn't just put it on His back, became sin. He becomes the cursed thing. He becomes your addiction. He becomes your depression. He becomes the very thing that you're struggling with. And He takes it to Calvary. And it's crucified. He is the only hope, men. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. So my story is a story of ups and downs, as I'm sure your story is. I grew up in a good Christian home. My dad is playing clarinet with us this morning. They took us to church every Sunday, not just every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, not just every Sunday night, but every Wednesday, and any time there was a special event at the church. God forbid there was a revival. You were there all week. That's the church I grew up in. The family I grew up in, they loved God, and my dad is a hard worker. My mom, who's been on to be with the Lord, was a woman of God, a woman of faith, a woman of prayer, who clung to the altar of prayer for her sons. I've lost her since then, but I remember her sacrifices, and it's one of the reasons I stand here today, because of the sacrifices of others, because of those who have gone on before us. And so I grew up in this home, and I appreciate this even to this day. I remember going to Vacation Bible School as a little boy, and in Vacation Bible School, at the end of the service, they said, if you want to go to heaven when you die, come forward. Pretty easy altar call, right? Yes, pick me. I'd love to go to heaven. So, my little grubby hand raised that day in Vacation Bible School, and I walked to the front, and I gave my heart to Jesus, if you will. I asked Him into my heart, as they would say. Then on the way home, I remember sitting with my mom in the vehicle and asking my mom, well, hey, Mom, what happens to those people who don't go to heaven? Because there's a destination people are going to. What's the other destination, or what happens to those who don't go to heaven? And she was very plain with me as to what Scripture taught, that there is a heaven and there is a hell. There are choices we make in this life to follow Christ or not that decide our eternal destiny. And that's heavy. That's heavy for a little, I don't know how old I was, 8 years old? That's heavy for an 8-year-old. So in my head, automatically I'm thinking, well, that means all my buddies are going to hell. We had a little shed in the backyard. It was a little beat up metal shed, and there was a couch in that shed, and that was my clubhouse. I had equipped that thing with many different things, but I was the clubhouse leader. And I called a clubhouse meeting. Jacob and Nicholas showed up, and Brian Morris was there, and I think there was just 3 in attendance that day. But they show up at the clubhouse, and I want to have a club meeting. 8, 10 years old, I don't know how old I was. But I gathered them all, set them on that old dirty, grubby couch, and I said, there's a heaven and there's a hell. I just found out. And I preached my first message I've ever preached in my entire life. And guess what it was on? Hell. As an 8-year-old boy, I remember sitting in that little shed and asking them all to bow their heads and close their eyes. And all 3 of them looking around, all right, their heads go down. I said, and if you don't want to go to hell, raise your hand. And all 3 of those little hands went up that day. They said they didn't want to go to hell. And I'd led them in the prayer, regurgitated the prayer that I had regurgitated earlier and I had thought of. But this was the home that I was raised in, the belief system, the first sermon I preached. But how many of us know that, life is full of trouble and difficulty and challenges? I can remember growing up in this side of town was a little different than the other side of town where we went to church. This side of town was not as affluent. Their mommies and daddies didn't buy them cars as soon as they turned 16 years old. They didn't go on trips to Vail, Colorado every winter to go snowboarding and skiing. Like, we didn't do those things. We weren't rich. We were blessed and well off in the world standards, and I understand that now. But at the time, I didn't. There was this comparativeness that happened in my heart and in my head as all these people seemed to be prosperous and living this certain type of life that wasn't quite the same life that we were living on the other side of the tracks. I went to John Marshall High School. John Marshall High School is one of the first schools to get metal detectors in Oklahoma City because of violence. This is before they moved John Marshall. They literally moved an entire high school because of the violence in that school. That's the school I went to before they moved it. It was a rough place. And so I remember my family, my mom in particular, being concerned about me, about my future, and being raised in this neighborhood where people were getting caught with guns and knives at school, and there were gang fights happening and all kinds of difficulties in that school. And so I can remember them presenting the idea to go to Putman City Original on the other side of town. But in order to do that, I had to go live with my uncle so that I had residency in that area. And so I moved out of the house, went to Putman City Original, and something happened in my heart in that school as I was put into a whole new place. To be honest with you, I was living for God in northwest Oklahoma City off of Britton and Western, there, 1437 Northwest 98th Street. I was living for God, going to church, but now I was thrown into a whole new school with no friends, and all of a sudden, I started to see that lifestyle that I wanted. James tells us that each man is tempted when he's lured away by his own evil desires. There's something inside of me that desired, first of all, to be popular, to be accepted, to be ingratiated to a certain group of people, to have a hot girlfriend, to have a nice car. At Putman City Original, it was in the parking lot, student parking lot. There were Jeeps on lift kits with KC lights and state-of-the-art sound systems. Guys just pulling in, doom, 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 doom. Just so cool. We had guys rolling in Mercedes that had ground effects and dropped to the ground. Like, these guys were driving the nicest cars ever. I didn't have a vehicle. I was dropped off at school after the weekend by my mommy. I remember acting like I was sleeping in the back of the LTD, as that thing was like a boat when you rode the old LTDs the whole way. I can remember laying in the back, acting like I was sleeping because I didn't want to be seen getting out of a car with my mommy. I would have rather been driving up to the school in a Jeep on a lift kit, looking like somebody important with a girlfriend in the next seat. Well, there was a life that I wanted there, that I desired, and to be honest with you, I was befriended by a group of people there that were living that lifestyle. Abraxas Baker and Tony LaCastro and all these individuals who had everything it seemed like they needed. And that's a life that I wanted, with all the glitter and the glamour and all the things that came with that. I was befriended by a group of people that then I began to attend parties with. Being a new kid at a school is kind of interesting because you're kind of like this mysterious new guy, you know, that all the girls are like, who's this guy? And it was quite interesting going to a school like that, to be accepted by girls, to be accepted by cool kids, to be accepted by those who had stuff. I can remember going to my first party and feeling kind of out of place. I walked into the party and everybody's, hey, what's up? Talking to other people, not me. This is how a normal person walked into the party. Hey, what's up, Johnny? Hey, man, how you doing? And I come in like, I didn't know nobody. Just kind of sitting over here on the wall, just. So soon I took a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and I had something at least to do with my hands. Anybody here socially awkward? Just me? Okay. Well, that was me at a party trying to fit in, socially awkward, wanting something to do with my hands. Well, I found something to do with my hands. And it was drink and smoke and start to indulge in that lifestyle of addiction. Well, it didn't end there, and I'll fast forward because I don't have a whole lot of time here today. But I was fully immersed in that lifestyle. I was not much of a partier in the sense of clubbing and things like that, but we were the kind of guys that were on a spiritual journey, if you will. It was mescaline on top of a water tower. It was LSD in an open field staring up at the sky, pontificating the mysteries of life with my buddies, exploring and trying to figure out what life's all about. Well, we had come up with a great plan. This was our great plan as we stared at the stars one night. Our 5-year plan, that is. We'll go to Colorado. We'll smoke weed. We'll trip shrooms. And we'll snowboard every day, all day. We'll work on the mountain. We'll be ski bums. And that was our 5-year plan. Well, here I am at Putman City Original. I didn't have a car, so I stole a car. And I decided I was going to drive that car to Putman City Original. I just start driving this car. It's stolen. I'm driving it to school every day. I don't park in the student parking lot. I park in the neighborhood behind the school because it's stolen. And that day for lunch, everybody was like, hey, man, you want to ride with me, Loren? I'm like, no, man, y'all want to ride with me? You want to ride in my new Lincoln? So I went and pulled it up, the Lincoln. We all jumped in. It was Tony LaCastro, rest in peace, and Trent Dawson got in the car with me, and we're going to Pizza Inn to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet where one man buys a buffet and we all eat. Anyway, so we're going to Pizza Inn, and we're getting ready to turn left at a stoplight. It's green. I should be yielding. It's raining, and I go to take the left turn, and a car T-bones us. I'm in a stolen car, and this car is spinning out in the intersection. The two guys in the car didn't know it was stolen. And so we get out of the car after spinning around in the intersection, and we're all stunned, and I say, hey, guys, we need to run. They're like, excuse me? Yeah, the car's stolen. What? Yeah. And so we all start bolting back to Putman City Original. It's about 5 city blocks. We run all the way back to Putman City Original. We're right across the street. I'm literally getting ready to cross the street. They're about a block back. They're slow anyway. And I'm getting ready to cross the street. Cop cars pull up from all angles, throw me on the ground, go back and get them in War Acres. We're arrested by War Acres PD, thrown in jail. I go to the Berry House, Oklahoma City, for grand car theft auto, and they let them go because I'm the one that had stolen the car. And man, this is just the life that I started, a Christian life that started in a good place, and then being embedded into a whole new community and desiring a certain lifestyle, and the desires of my heart bending me away from what's right and what's real into darkness and emptiness. Well, here I am with the grand car theft auto on my record, and this is before I'm 18. Well, that life just continued, man, of darkness. Remember I told you we wanted to go to Colorado? One of those guys was Steve, and other was Tony. Steve was playing lead guitar with us at the summit. That's who Steve is. Well, Tony's dad found weed in his room and said, either you're going to Teen Challenge or you're homeless. I'm taking your Jeep. I'm taking all your stuff. So you're going to Teen Challenge or you're homeless. So Tony then shows up at our place at Steve's in Norman, sits down with us and says, hey, my dad caught me. I'm going to this place because I have to. And but as soon as you guys are ready to go to Colorado, we're all going together. So Tony was going to come here and play games. So Tony comes here at his dad's behest, and here Tony's not going to do this. And he's it's Jesus camp. This is a joke, right? He's not going to do it. He's playing games, but at some point God gets a hold of his heart. Matter of fact, this is Tony. Let me tell you how bad he wasn't going to do it. He was on house duty. Back when we were in the old offices, he was cleaning Bill Everett's office. Well, when Tony came in, they confiscated his dugout and his one-hitter that he smoked weed with. Guess where it was? In Bill's desk. Tony is cleaning Bill's office. He's just, we'll see what's in this desk. And boop, pulls it out. There's his one-hitter. Tony Fandera is the only student to ever smoke marijuana in the executive director's office in Oklahoma Teen Challenge. That's how much Tony wasn't going to do it. That's why I tell you that. He was playing games. He was getting away with what he could get away with. But at some point, God changed everything for Tony. He accepted the Lord and he gave his life to him. And he came back for Christmas break. Steve and I were high on meth in Norman. And Tony's going to come and talk to us because he's got to tell us something. He's got to tell us that he's not going to Colorado with us and that his life is radically changed. We're high on meth in Norman. He comes over. First of all, I would never advise this as a former student, as a student who's in recovery, to go to an old drug house. But that's what Tony did. Tony showed up. First he talked to Steve. Then he asked if he could talk to me, and we went upstairs, and I'm breaking out a line of meth on the table while he's talking to me. And he says, Loren, I'm not going to Colorado with you guys. I found Jesus, and he's changed everything. I said, who? I laid the line down on the table, and I took it all in front of him. Yeah. The man who was now following Jesus, and the sinner who was broken and lost and looking at a man he didn't recognize anymore. But Tony wasn't going with us. Well, Steve and I decided to keep going. We went with Preston and my girlfriend at that time, Emily Doster, and we drove all the way to Colorado. We got a job on the mountain, Hot Sulphur Springs area, Kremling, and then Winter Park is where we worked at the Winter Park Ski Resort, worked on the mountain, thought we were living the dream, and arrived to where we thought like happiness was. Like powder, pack powder, snowboard under my feet, high as a kite. Only problem is, at this point, cocaine had ravished everything. At this point, I was using coke daily. Preston was with us. Preston was a cocaine dealer. We were all really messed up. And the reality is this, that I was in heaven, if you will. A beautiful place, powder, pack powder, mountains and beauty. But all I could think on that ski lift with the snowboard on my feet is, I don't want to be here. All this beauty makes me angry. I want to go home and get high. Anybody ever been there? Anybody ever have everything that's ever valuable in your life, valuable in your life ripped from you? All the things that you cared about, your art, your music, your sport, all the good things in life that then become watered down and don't mean anything. Why? Because cocaine means something? Yeah, that's why. Because cocaine meant everything at that point. And I just wanted this stupid snowboard off my feet and to be off this stupid lift. You ever heard, I think it was Lane Staley that said it this way, heaven beside me, hell within? Oh yeah. That song was embodied with me in a beautiful heavenly place. Heaven beside me, hell within. Listen, if this ain't right, men, ain't nothing right. Nothing will ever be right. Meanwhile, Tony is back here praying, gathering around in circles with the ridiculous idea that if we talk to God, He might do something. Well, they used to gather around. You guys pray for certain people, brothers and lost loved ones? Oh, it works. And he would gather around with just 8 men at that time. That's all the students that were here. One dormitory. And they'd pray for Loren and Steve. They didn't even know who we were, but Tony did. Well, we're driving home one evening, and we're driving through Hot Sulphur Springs. The cops are following us with the lights on in the back, and we pull over to the side. They search the vehicle. They notice very quickly that I am fidgety and something wrong because I'm high. Just scratching my own shoulder, just biting my own ear, and he's, something wrong with this boy. We're going to need to search this vehicle quickly. Anybody ever think you're faking it? You're really, you're really fooling them. You're like, caw-caw! Like a daggum T-Rex. He's like, what's wrong with you? Little baby dinosaur I pulled over. What the heck's happening here? Well, he was like, oh yeah, we need to search this vehicle. They search the vehicle. They find my stash. I took ownership of it. They let Steve and Preston go, but they got a search warrant for our house. They searched our house, found ounces and ounces of coke, scales, arrested us. Then they later showed up to the jail there, arrested all of us for drug trafficking, bringing drugs from Oklahoma to Colorado and to distribute. Now I am 18 years old, and I'm in Hot Sulphur Springs, Colorado jail, and a man named Bill Everett, the founder of this ministry, was reached out to by our families. And Bill flew to Colorado, stood in a courtroom where he was once arraigned. Yeah. See, Bill was a mainline heroin addict, a bank robber, who stood in that very courtroom. Hot Sulphur Springs, the very jail that I sat in. So here's Bill coming to Hot Sulphur Springs to share with the judge that there's a ministry that we can go to. And he shares the ministry, and this judge lets us off of a potential 30-year sentence in lieu of a successful completion of Teen Challenge and 20 years of probation or whatever it was. And so he speaks to the judge in a very courtroom where he was once arraigned, where that judge at that time said he never wanted to see Bill again. And he sentenced Bill to prison from that jail. Well, now Bill is standing, talking to a new judge. The old judge told him he didn't want to see him there anymore. Well, here's Bill. He's coming back regardless. Speaks to the judge on our behalf. So we get to go to Teen Challenge after spending many, many days, over a month in jail. Steve and I both are going to Teen Challenge. Steve's going here. I'm going to Waco, or it's Midland, Teen Challenge, because they don't put two guys who were arrested for drug trafficking at the same time in the same jail into the same ministry together. It's a no-no. You don't do that. We still haven't done it to this day. Two men arrested together. I'm on my way to Midland. Bill Everett calls my mother and says, hey, I don't know why I'm doing this, but God doesn't want him there. God wants him here. And I broke up today because I realized the totality of my life and God's guiding in that life, that one day I would stand behind this pulpit. One day I would lead this ministry. I didn't know it at the time. My life was in shambles. I just wanted to know if I could live sober. But God knew. So much so that he brought Bill all the way there to speak on my behalf, the very place where he was arraigned. And so I'm on my way to Midland. My mom corrects course, and I'm heading to Sonrise. Steve's here. Tony's here. Literally my two best friends that I grew up with, used drugs with, got arrested with, all in the same ministry together. My life radically changed in this ministry. I was introduced to a revolutionary Jesus. Not a pretty, white, suburban Jesus. The true Jesus. The revolutionary who preached and called religious people dead men's bones and whitewashed tombs and brood of vipers, and silenced the religious authorities of that day and caused Rome itself to take notice of who he was. It was a faith that required blood, sweat, and tears. It wasn't superficial and hollow and surface level. I heard it from a man who was a mainline heroin addict and a bank robber whose life had radically changed. And I realized that my life could radically change. Much like Tony. And my life changed in this ministry. Well, life doesn't end there, man, and life's full of ups and downs, right? I went to Bible college. I met my wife. I went into full-time ministry, 5-year youth pastor from Louisiana to Texas. And God did miraculous things in my life. But life's full of ups and downs. I can remember we moved to Florida to be close to her family. That's where she's from. And we buy a house there, and we are reestablished. I'm no longer in ministry for a period. Honestly, there's a whole nother story here. And, my heart had already kind of been frustrated with modern religion and churches and their outreach toward others and their closing of doors to those who need help. Because I worked in some of these churches that didn't necessarily want sinners in their church. And it was hard for me, and regardless, I didn't handle those things properly. I felt like it was me against the world, and I developed this attitude. Well, I'm no longer in ministry. I'm a year out of 1 to 2 years out of ministry, and I'm in Florida. I'm married at this point. We've got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, Lily, Lorelei, and Joel. And I'm in Orlando, Florida, working at a home respiratory company delivering supplies, and I get a call from my brother-in-law, Jared, and he says that he's crying and frantic on the phone, and he says, Loren, Joel is not breathing. Excuse me? My wife was on a field trip with our oldest daughter, and Lorelai and Joel were home with Jared, and he was watching them. Jared had fallen asleep, and Joel and Lorelai went out the front door playing, and they crawled into the back area where the pool was, and Joel fell into the pool. I know now that he was reaching for an inflatable fire truck that was floating in the pool. Well, Lorelai was just a little girl. She didn't know about death, and so she goes about her business. Joel is floating lifeless. Jared wakes up, sees him floating in the pool, picks him out of the pool, tries whatever he's tried there, CPR, calls me. That's when I'm on the phone, then begin to ask him, is he breathing? Have you called 911? I put my foot to the floor of that car in Orlando, and I zooming in and out of traffic. I call my brother. I call my mom. I call everybody I know, and I say, pray for my boy because he's dying. You see, Joel, David, is 2 years old, had curly blonde hair and blue eyes. And our favorite pastime was playing trains together. We had this geo tracks that we would set up, and we would set them up high, and we would make it fly down the track, and we would have fun for hours. Well, every time I would come home, he would look up at me and say, Daddy, Daddy home. Daddy home. Daddy, you come play trains with me, Daddy? Yeah, Joel, let's play trains. It's the reason I have a tattoo of a train on my shoulder in honor of him. Well, I flew in and out of that traffic, and I rushed to the emergency room, and I busted into the door, and I saw his 2-year-old lifeless body lying on a gurney, and I raced to him thinking that maybe it's still going to be okay, put my hand on his body, and at that point I realized something was gravely wrong because he was ice cold. I knew it was over. And in that moment, the realization in my hand knew that life was all completely changing for me and our family. My wife then busted in through the back door weeping profusely because her little boy was dying and she couldn't help him. I couldn't pick him up and wipe him off and kiss his boo-boo. It's over. He's gone. I can remember anger setting in and frustration setting in and becoming even more frustrated with faith and with God and being in a place in my life where I began to scream at the heavens, how dare you take my only son? I remember making deliveries in some pretty rough areas, and I knew, and I can still spot a drug addict and the very drug they're using just by seeing the way they move. Oh, you can too probably, right? Yeah. I remember walking into that neighborhood knowing there's the drug dealers, there's the addicts, and I knew the quickest way to escape, man, because I've learned it in my life. Substance and darkness, escapism. And I can remember in that moment thinking if I could just cop something. So I start smoking weed again, and then weed turns into cocaine again. And then I'm using cocaine almost every day, working for Home Respiratory Solutions in Florida. I would get so coked out of my mind, running from people that didn't exist, that I ended up 4 hours from my deliveries. Just weaving in and out of neighborhoods. Oh yeah, they on to me. Helicopters, they coming. Ain't nobody following me. I remember one time my heart pounding because I'd used so much cocaine that I literally couldn't move. My whole body had seized up. And I just had to kind of pull over to the side of the road, and I was just sitting there shaking. And something inside of me saying, God, I felt like I was going to die at that moment. I really do believe that God put his hand on my life and said, not yet. Yeah. That was the life of depression and addiction, again reemerging because of death and because of difficulty in life. I moved back to Oklahoma after selling that house and that very pool that he died in that I had to clean for another 6 months. We moved to Oklahoma, and I was sober for about 4 or 5 months. We lived with my mom and dad for a period, and then we got our own place again, another flip house. That's what I do on the side, and we bought a house that needed a lot of work. I'm working on that house. An individual comes to the door, I think it's about 6 months after being sober in Oklahoma. Still wasn't okay with God. I was angry at God. I would sit on the back row of church and just be there. Wouldn't raise my hands in worship. Wouldn't engage. Was just angry. This guy comes to our door. He knocks on my door. he says, hey, man, I got some supplies at my house if you want to buy some construction supplies. Thinking, heck yeah, man, get some cheap paint, some different things that maybe this guy has stolen that he wants to resell. That's basically what it amounted to. And so I followed him over to his place. I bought 2 5-gallons of primer from him for a great price. And then I looked over at him and I said, this dude knows where I can get some drugs. Right? Oh, we know who they are. We know where to spot them. I said, hey, you know where I can get some cocaine? He said, yep. After the 2 5-gallons of buckets of paint, we went and found cocaine at his local dealer. And then began a life of cocaine use in Oklahoma City. Guess what happens when you can't find cocaine? Usually they got something else for you in rock form. And I engaged in a life of crack addiction, and I hadn't known addiction to this point. Oh, I had known meth and all the party drugs and all those things, but now crack cocaine and the short high that it brought and the quick desperation that it brings to, like a rat in a cage, to go find more. Like if you can't find it, you're going to die. Anybody else? Crawling on the ground for another crumb. Like literally takes you back to this base level animal instinct where it's just like survival. There's no soul about it. It's just get by and hollow. Yeah, that was me, dying inside. I can remember sitting in my basement screaming at the sky saying, God, how dare you? Cracked out of my mind. How dare you take my only son? Screaming at him. And I've heard his voice a few times in my life. And this day I heard it. As he said, Loren, I gave you my only son. How dare you take my only son? Loren, I gave you my only son. So I'm grappling with this father-son relationship, this love a father has for a son. But the ultimate love God displays in His Scripture is that for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. You know what He was saying to me that day? I know your pain, Lord. I know it. He's not pretending at the pain. Oh, my friend, it's His answer to you and every question you have and every difficulty you have in life. Lord, why did you raise me in this family? Why did you take my mother? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? He's going to say the same thing to you. I know. I'm sorry. I suffer with you. I am next to you in the suffering. I'm in the brokenness. I'm on the cross. I remember at one point screaming and saying, well, how do you know crack addiction? There wasn't crack back then. Like you can't possibly know this animal that it's created inside of me. I can't even fight it. And he said, Loren, He who knew no sin became sin. Oh, He knows all of our pain, all of our anguish. Why? Because He put it on His back. And He drug it to Calvary. The sin of humanity, past, present, and future. However they indulge in that. Whether through sexual immorality or drunkenness or drug addiction or selfishness or violence, whatever it may be, He put it on His back and He knows it. Because He who knew no sin, oh, He didn't just put it on His back. Became sin. He becomes the cursed thing. He becomes your addiction. He becomes your depression. He becomes the very thing that you're struggling with. And He takes it to Calvary. And it's crucified. He is the only hope, men. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. So, He answers me. Steve, the lead guitar player from the Summit, calls me up and says, hey, Loren, let's go see Bill. Bill Everett's dying of cancer at the time. He's got about a year to live. I say, okay, let's go see Bill. I'm nodding the whole time in the car to get here. Hadn't slept in 5 days. Hadn't eaten in 7. At the end of a bender. We show up to Bill's house. He looks about like I do. But he got cancer. I got crack addiction. He's emaciated, gaunt, sunken in, and he comes to the door, just creeps to the door. The same man that flew to Hot Sulphur Springs, Colorado for a rebellious 18-year-old boy. I remember that door opening that day, and I remember Bill looking at me, and I remember a smile across his face, a smile that I hadn't seen in a while. Because what I usually saw with the looks on people's faces when they saw me, people that knew me before, and they're like, "Oh, hey, Loren, how are you?" What they're really saying is, "You look terrible." You know, what happened to you? That's literally what you can see it in their eyes. Are you okay? Bill didn't look at me like that. Yeah. I had all my excuses in my head. I'm not going back to this place. I left all my clothing back in the city because I had to tell Bill, listen, I haven't got my things together yet. I need to go take care of some business back home. I'll be right back. The reality is I did that on purpose. But when Bill smiled like that, embraced me, and then looked at me and said, "Are you ready?" All those walls crumbled. All those excuses crumbled. And I said, "Yes." Then David Hunter come to get me. David Hunter is a somewhat slow-moving, methodical man. He usually shuffles his feet like this when he walks. Back then, this is how he walked, all the way from dorm 1 to Brian's house up front, where I was at with Bill, because that was Bill's house at the time. And here comes David Hunter to come take me to my new top bunk. He comes down to get me. This is David Hunter. This is me. Ah! I'm doing like circles around him. We're heading to dorm 1. All the people are looking out the window. Oh, dear God, who's this guy? Supposed to detox first. Yeah. Something about being accepted when you don't deserve it. Something about being loved when you haven't earned it. Oh, it's mercy, my friend. My life radically changed. Let me turn this to happiness as we end this. Yeah, I am in Teen Challenge. It takes me a month or two just to get back into worship, to feel again, to not feel calloused and hardened. But my life changes again. God restores everything. God moves my family down here. I have a vasectomy reversal. We can talk about that on another occasion. But after I had 3 kids, had a vasectomy, we were fine with 3 kids. After we lost Joel, realized that was a mistake. Got a reversal. Wasn't sure if it was going to be successful. Matter of fact, all the money in lieu of flowers that was given toward the funeral was the exact price of the vasectomy reversal. I'm not joking, to the penny. Ask my wife. To the penny. When the doctor gave us the amount, okay, this is the amount you're going to need to send to this address, we looked at that account, and to the penny was the exact amount of the reversal. Yeah. I have the reversal. Now, it's a discount reversal. Wouldn't advise. It means you're not going to be put under. You're going to be awake for 2 hours. Why, he cuts you open. And he sews you back together. Hallelujah. All I saw the whole time, my wife wanted to watch. There was a sheet protecting me from sharp objects that were down there. And my wife was on the other side watching the procedure. And this was her face the whole time. I was like, will you please come over here? I don't want to see this for a reason. I certainly want to see your reaction to this. Please. Well, the vasectomy reversal worked, and we had a 3rd child, or a 4th child at this point, and it's JL Daisy. JL Daisy, now there's 3 girls in the house, 4 if you include my wife, 5 if you include our dog, Snickers. Anyway, females everywhere. Well, I'm going to be as quick as I can, but at the funeral, when we were burying Joel and everybody was showing up to the house, my wife went back into the bathroom because she felt like this was becoming too real. Like, why is Mom and Dad here? Why are Eric and Tara here? Like, no, this is real. My son's really dead and we're really having a funeral. She felt like she was trying to escape reality, so she walked back to the bathroom, and in the bathroom, she's crying out to God in depression and pain. And she, listen, man, we're not these kind of people. You're not going to hear me share about visions and dreams that I've had every other day. There's been very few in my life, but there have been moments. And for her, this was one of those moments that she was removed from her body. Yeah. She ascended above her body into another body, to another world, if you will. And it was where she's at now, in this house with that white island in our kitchen. And she saw two boys come in to that kitchen. Now, mind you, I haven't even had the reversal yet. We don't have the money for the reversal. We're going to a funeral. Yeah. And here we are. She is standing at 20551 Southwest Lee Boulevard in that kitchen with that island that I've refurbished. And two boys walk in, one with darker hair and one with a little lighter hair, and they're carrying a basketball and they're thirsty. And in that moment, she's in that moment and she has joy for some reason, because these are her sons. And then all of a sudden she back into Ocala, Florida, preparing for her son's funeral. But she saw a glimpse of hope. Guess what? My boy's favorite sport is basketball. Guess what kind of island we have in our kitchen? Oh, a white island, exactly like that. Life after death. We have Everett Paul, named after Bill Everett, the founder of this ministry, the man who opened the door to me and smiled when I was broken, the man who flew to Hot Sulphur Springs, Colorado on behalf of me, a man who didn't deserve it. And then, traumatic birth. My wife's placenta abrupts. Everett's life flighted to Oklahoma City. It's a traumatic. They don't think she's going to be able to have kids again. But she's had a vision. And guess what? A few years later, she's pregnant again. And we're sitting in that ultrasound, and they say, it's a boy. And Joel, his memory is honored by Everett Paul and Judah Charles Shreffler. Judah is born. And what I'm showing you here is there is the mistakes of humanity, the mistakes of ourselves, the pursuing after things and the glitter and the glamour of life. And there are our questions and our challenges and pain and death and difficulty in life. But God is sovereign through it all. God brings beauty for ashes, strength for fear, gladness for mourning, and peace for despair. That is our God. He resurrects things that are dead. And so from my son's passing, now we stand with those two boys as an honor of what God has done. And not just them, then there's J.L. Daisy in Bible college right now. God is doing amazing things in her life. Listen, man, this is my story from beginning to end, as quick as I can tell it. God has something for your lives, men. When we wander into that old life, guess what? That same garbage is still there. It's not rocket science. The same lies, the same manipulation, the same lust, the same addiction, the same death and decay. It's not going to be any different. A matter of fact, it will be worse. The more we turn ourselves over to those things. But my friend, the more you turn yourself over to Him, the more fruit you will have on your vine. The beauty that will emanate from your life. The provision that will come from nowhere. God will show up in a mighty way. For those who sow in tears will reap in joy. But you've got to trust Him, men. Are you done living that life? We've all got a story, right? That God has been sovereign over, leading and guiding us. Are you going to allow Him to write the rest of your story? And when you fall, are you going to get up? Because you will fall, but you must fall forward. Every time. You know what the enemy will tell you? Oh, you already messed up. Why? It's all gone now. You might as well. What are you talking about? No. The more I sow into goodness, the more goodness I will have. The more I sow into darkness, the more darkness I will have. Time to get up. Be new. Allow Him to resurrect everything in your life, see the possibility of what God can do. Amen? God has good things for your life. The enemy does not. He's still a liar. He's still deceptive. He's still got the same treats for you. Oh, and they will entice for a second. But in the end, it will turn into rocks and gravel in your mouth. It will not satisfy. Only He satisfies. Only He gives life after death. Only He raises the dead, my friend. Only He can direct our lives through all the ups and downs. Let's bow our heads. God, we love You and we thank You for new life, for second chances, for third chances, for fourth chances, God. That your mercy and Your kindness, they're not limited by our stupidity. God, You are good. Your mercies are